still what do you call it? A photo bomb, and if it's a video bomb?
Oh yeah, it's a video bomb.
We missed you on our panel, so we joined yours.
I love it.
I love it. So you guys,
Nina's actually right behind us, Senator Nina Turner. She had been former Senator Nina Turner. She was asked to speak. It was a very specific request by Bernie Sanders, either Monday or Tuesday. She came Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday. He had wanted her. She came to speak. Then she saw her slot being filled from Ohio, and Senator Bernie Sanders then had told her and broke the news to her, because no one told her, that she wasn't going to be speaking. And it was a really painful thing. I think that there's all types of speculation about maybe what they didn't want her to say, or what they were worried about, or timing, and saying, oh, she was late or this or that, but she was there. And, it was a painful thing, and it just is reflective a bit of what a lot of people have been sharing, and what I've heard a lot on the floor is that there's a lot of talk about unity, but we're not feeling it, we're not seeing it, it's not being really reflected to individual delegates that I've spoken to, people who've spent a lot of money to be here, people who've gone into debt to be here. It's who are representing people and voters, and a lot of voters who didn't even get to be counted, and just wanting to make sure that that's part of it, so we're not just saying unity, but that we're actually trying to build it.
So Shailene, do you think that it's going to be counterproductive that if they just let Nina speak, that people would have felt like, oh, good, Nina spoke, but now people feel angry and you guys are doing this?
Angry that we're doing this, or angry because Nina wasn't allowed to speak?
No, I'm saying that the Sanders supporters are now angry, and if you just let her speak, you probably would have felt like, hey, at least she represented us.
You know what, I think it would have been a step in the definite right direction for Sanders supporters to feel that unity, and to feel like the Democratic Party and Hillary's campaign were embracing us. I mean, Nina has such a strong voice. She's one of the most beloved politicians and surrogates for Bernie Sanders' campaign. I know, I'm so inspired by that woman. And every time I hear her speak, I think her voice is incredibly important to rally and to capitalize on the momentum that the Sanders campaign has built, to bring it into the Democratic Party and keep it in the Democratic Party for Hillary's nomination.
So, Rosario, what do you think? Is there a way to bring unity in? What can they do? Is there something where you guys would be like, okay, all right, that was pretty good?
I mean, apologies are always great and helpful. We saw that earlier. It was a young Palestinian Muslim woman who was photographed, and with the title that, we've made history, and she is a delegate for Bernie Sanders and been working for him, working to get him elected. She just felt like her pain, that's why she was crying, was the pain of how much time and effort was put into it. It was co-opted. To be, and she felt like it was co-opted specifically because she had her head wrap on, and that it was about trying to exploit the sort of like a Muslim woman's image for Hillary, when actually it was not for her. So they've apologized since, and that helps, like those types of things. But people need to get their stories out so that that kind of thing can happen. When Deborah Wasserman Schultz resigns because of the DNC leaks, and then is immediately hired, and there's nothing in the statement from the Hillary Clinton that even acknowledges the reason why she's now available to now run her campaign. There's already a trust gap. There's already a feeling that there is an integrity there, as and people are going, oh, you got all that stuff on the platform. Well, it's a piece of paper. We want to actually know if you're going to, because they want not just our votes, but they want that energy. They want that phone banking. They want that canvassing. They want what people were inspired to do for Bernie Sanders, and they're not feeling that inspiration. And it's really key to especially reach out to the folks like someone like Senator Nina Turner, who's willing to go up there and be that bridge to make sure that the millions of voters that she got involved are represented. And when you go against her, you're actually going against them.
So from whom do they want the apology for? From whom do they want the apology? Or does Senator Turner want an apology?
I'm just speaking here. I didn't speak earlier. I think Nina's already said that this was yesterday, and she's already, today is a new day, and I'm moving on. I think it's just
acknowledgement.
It's an acknowledgement of just where we are. We're here. We're talking about what's happening, and there's a lot of the narrative that is being pushed is that there's this wonderful unity that's going on, and in reality, there was a huge walkout yesterday, and they didn't just walk out in upset. They took a direction and walked to the media tent here and did a silent protest to acknowledge the votes that weren't counted.
But some
So
reporting I
it's
did today, that's why I asked.
reporting, I think, is really
Yeah.
important. I think it's not going to necessarily feel like there's a tremendous point, I think, to everything, but I think people do need to move through the emotions of what this whole process has been, and it has not been a fair fight. It's been a kind of ugly fight. What the DNC leaks just showed this weekend was a willingness to be anti-Semitic in order to push back against Bernie Sanders. That's big, and that's not being acknowledged. So, but everyone wants unity. So what we were saying is, for me, I don't know what Nina or anybody else wants, but for me, when I'm at the DNC and I'm seeing Trump's name everywhere because love trumps hate, I want to know that love is actually there. Because if we don't have that love there, then love won't trump hate. Yeah.
So let me ask one more thing. So I had a Clinton spokesperson on the show the other day, and I suggested a couple of things because I like to be constructive. And I said, okay, now here's something that would gain a lot of trust. If the Clinton team said, you know what, we're not taking the donor money anymore. Okay, we're going to do it Bernie Sanders style. Can you guys give us $27 at a time?
Be huge.
That would be
the lack of
everything.
faith for me. For me, that was one of the reasons why I really went so hard for Bernie, because I was supporting the people who were supporting him. Like, that's really what it's at. So when you're turning against him and you're mocking certain things, you're really mocking the people who put him there. I mean, you think about. I mean, it's a lot of money. This is a major big deal in 2016 for a man who doesn't have a brand name or household name, he's a 74-year-old man, Democratic socialist, to get 46% of the vote when we also saw collusion between the media and the DNC against him. Like, that's pretty huge. That's a really significant thing. And a lot of the stuff was on his platform is now in the Democrat. Those are all tremendous, tremendous feats. So, but there's an emotional part of all of this that is still not being acknowledged about what it would actually take to get to unity. Not because these are new voters, these are young voters, these are people who put money up. Like, these are a lot of folks who put it for the first time, engaged in that way, and they're looking at the process and going, I don't see how I have anybody to choose from, because the reason why I went behind him is because he was from the people. So I think if she were to say that I have faith enough now, that not that she didn't before, but if she had faith enough now in using her record and her name and her brand to get money from the people, I think that would be really significant. When it was only a few $100,000, right? That's how they made it seem. It was very little money that they were taking from private prison complex. But when she returned that money, that was a really big gesture and allowed a lot of people to go, okay, that's an issue I have a problem with, but that's showing me that when you are saying that you're going to be strict about, the private prison industrial complex issues, that we are actually going to maybe get some accountability, because you've made that gesture. It makes us feel that way. So I think that's where we're at right now. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in November or beyond, or if she's going to keep those promises. But gestures right now are going to be important to get those votes.
Can I just finish the thought? Because then I said, okay, I know that you're not going to do that. No, I didn't frame it that way. I asked. She said no. And
really?
And then I said, okay, how about the next election? So you guys said constitutional amendment to get money out of politics.
Yep.
So we'll know you mean it if you say, I'm going to fight for 4 years to get this money out of politics, because the next time I run, I will not take corporate money and I will not take donor money. And they said, that's premature. But that's 4 years from now. Now, if they said yes to that and said, that's it, I'm not taking any donor money next time I run, and I'm going to push for that constitutional amendment, would it be enough to get you guys excited, phone banking out there and saying, she's going to give it a real shot, and she puts her career on the line, and she's going to do it next time? By the way, they said no. But but if they had said yes, would that be something that could get you excited and go, okay, now maybe she's going to do it?
Well, understanding the last, presidency, that we had the major big promises. It was done like within 100 days. We're going to pass immigration reform. We're comprehensive immigration reform. We're going to shut down Guantanamo Bay, and then those things didn't happen. So there's a real question for people who are voters, just going, well, if you say something doesn't mean you're going to do it. So that I think saying something is really important. The acknowledgement is going to be really important. But I think even beyond that, it's going to have to be some actual real gestures, like the superdelegate situation. People want like concrete things that they can see now that they're willing to do, that will make us believe some of the promises they're saying. Because people will promise anything, but I think people are getting savvy enough to know, no, we've been here before. What are you going to do? And so I think definitely acknowledging what happened with Nina would definitely be really helpful. But I'm not,
There was a protest yesterday where Bernie supporters, delegates occupied this media tent. And, talking to the various supporters, I noticed that there was a little bit of a divide even within that movement. There was a delegate from Kansas who felt, hey, you know what? We need to listen to Bernie Sanders. And if he wants us to support Hillary Clinton, then we need to support Hillary Clinton because it's important to defeat Trump. So do you feel that, what's happening today with this press conference is actually helping Trump's campaign? Because I'm seeing that criticism as well. And I want to know what the response is from you guys.
I can't, I think this, for several months now, any single time there was any kind of criticism, you're helping Trump. At what point are we able to actually talk about the issues and be critical about them so we can get some traction on them? Saying that you're better than Trump is not saying very much. So, there's a lot of wiggle room there for people to still get really hurt. And people are hurting right now already. And they're worried about their children and their children's after that future. So they want to see some real traction on these issues and not just be pandered to. So, I think what's the interesting thing about Bernie people is that they're Democrats, they're Republicans, they're independents, they are first-time voters, and they united under Bernie. But afterwards, they're feeling they all agreed that was the best avenue for the political revolution. Now they have the different reasonings that they loved him is also fueling the different motivations to go in other directions. So some people are going full green, some people are Bernie or bust, some people are going to write his name in, some people are not going to vote at all, some people are going to vote for Trump, some people are going to vote for Hillary. It's a very wide group of people. It's across all the states from very different. So what was interesting about it was that they were all able to come under the umbrella of him. So I don't know. And that's where I think Bernie Sanders was he wasn't holding back. I think he was being really honest. Anybody's going to have to earn those votes. He earned those votes. His record, people came out to see him. They heard him speak. They looked at his record and felt this is someone I can rally behind. And that's why they phone banked and canvassed and did all that stuff. So if that's what they want, then they're going to have to really generate that. And what they're seeing is that the things that they love about this platform are the things that people fought for. And we know that those things didn't go so well. Like, you can't just go up there when I'm watching it and going, and Hillary heard this and that's why she brought this all in. It's like, no, but I talked to all the people in the Rules Committee. It was pulling teeth to get these things across. So it sounds disingenuous when you're saying, oh, she heard you and it was so easy, because it wasn't. And that's what this is happening in real time. This is not like people looking back in history books and going, wow, I heard that was a really difficult time. People are seeing it as we're doing this. Everyone was streaming live. Everyone is a reporter now. So that information's getting out. And so that's it can't be about what's helping Trump or hurting Trump, where people are still listening, they're keyed in, and their moods are going up and down, their opinions are going up and down, and this is the time to keep giving them information. They want information. They don't want pandering. They want real promises. They want real legislation. They want acknowledgement of the fact that, yeah, this was really difficult to get here, but I'm willing to put these on here because I want your votes. Not that, all right, I'll take it, and you better vote for me. There's a tone that I think all throughout this entire campaign, and how people have spoken to each other on both sides and telling people tone down and all this kind of stuff that's going on, that now that's not going to be over just because both parties have decided who their nominees are.
And also, I think a lot of Sanders supporters are hearing right now, well, you're going to get Trump elected if you don't vote for Hillary. And that's a narrative that they're being fed. What if the narrative was, well, what if I want to vote for Hillary, but I also want these policies? How do we marry the two? So if you tell someone, well, you got to vote for this person in order to prevent A, B, C, and D, I don't think there's going to be as much momentum as there would be, you got to vote for this person because if you vote for this person, she has agreed to meet halfway on this platform, this policy, this policy. And I think that's something that the media can be really helpful with, is changing that narrative.
Yeah, and there's 3 months before the election takes place, and that's a lifetime in politics. Do you think that there's a possibility that if Sanders supporters continue holding her feet to the fire, she will change her policies in order to get that vote?
Absolutely. I think the reality is most of the things that made it onto the platform are the things that have the most organization behind them. So like the Fight for 15, these are, the people who put together Bernie's platform were activists. So those are the people who are going to go out there and have the communities to really stir up folks to get them to vote based on those issues. So if there's a true belief, because I'm talking to a lot of Bernie people. They're not going, oh, that's it. We all love Trump. That's not what they're not throwing the hat in, but they're wanting traction on these issues, and they're trying to figure out and navigate what's the best way to get to it. And they know if they just say, okay, we're all in, then they don't have any leverage whatsoever to actually try to get traction on the issues they care about. So I think it's actually really smart for people to make sure that those votes are earned and not just expected to be delivered.
All right, Rosario Dawson, Shailene Woodley. Thank you, guys. Thanks for
Thank you.
stopping
Wasn't
in.
expecting on chatting.
Yeah. But no,
This one said just peek your head in, and then
Right.
I've been telling everyone I'm not going to do any interviews. I'm going to get like eviscerated by all the other journalists I've said no to. But you guys, the Young
Thank
Turks,
you.
we love you.